No, don't care. No, don't care.
Welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelderman.
Oh, you're using your last name now?
We are on a last name basis right now.
We're on a last name basis?
Yes.
Go
ahead, Brian Mensing.
Brian Mensing. That is me.
That is you. He's
that
here.
Me.
It's just the two of us this week. And you know what? We're going to talk some movies because that's what we do on the Backlot 605 podcast.
Because that's what we do every week.
Every single week. When are we going to talk about something besides movies? Probably never.
When maybe it's a soundtrack about a movie?
Or TV shows.
Yeah,
I think we need to do a TV show episode.
Every so often? Hey, why not?
Why Friends is better than How I Met Your Mother. We're going to start it off with that one in a few weeks. Be on the lookout.
And you know what? You're wrong. And two, Stranger Things is coming out here in a couple weeks.
I mean, we could do something with that. I wouldn't have a problem doing TV shows.
Or, well, I was going to say either that or, like where they start in TV and where they're progressing into film or something like that, Like Finn Wolfhard or Millie Bobby Brown, for example.
We'll talk about it. But let's start this thing off. This week we are going to talk about Pixar movies.
Pixar.
Why?
Well, why not?
Is there a movie coming out this weekend from Pixar?
Nobody cares about Pixar.
No one does.
No.
Or Toy Story?
Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4 comes out this week, so we wanted to talk about all the Pixar movies. We're just going to break it down from the beginning, from Toy Story all the way up till Toy Story 4.
And if we fuck it up, just tell us.
Yes, please let us know. Let's jump to the box office for the week as we always do. Number one this week, and a disappointing week overall. Men in Black International, $28.5 million opening weekend. Yeah, it's coming in under expectations for sure.
You think?
Yeah. I remember I saw this somewhere. It was about $10 million less than Men in Black 3. Right around there.
I heard it was a pretty abysmal.
Sony is struggling again. That's all I got to say about this is, I remember a few years ago they were talking about, when Sony got hacked, there was rumors of the 22 Jump Street crossing over with Men in Black. These numbers kind of make you wonder if that crossover should have been this movie.
No.
No, you don't think so?
No.
I do. I want that.
It sounded like an interesting premise, but at the same time too, it's just no. I mean, no. There was way too much grounding to, as corny and as fun and as 21 and 22 Jump Street were. They didn't live in the same world of.
Did you see the after credits of 22 Jump Street?
Yes, I did. And they were just poking fun at themselves from when they originally said they weren't going to do a sequel, and then they did it anyway, and they were just poking fun.
And it was great.
Is it Seth Rogen?
Yeah, Seth Rogen takes over for the
Jonah Hill
part.
Yes.
For one movie. It was great. Anyway, what did you find out on Men in Black 3, what that one opened up with?
Its opening week, it grossed $54,593,000. Domestically. So basically, almost half
of what Men in Black International opened at.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not. I don't know. What do you think it was that it didn't, bring in the numbers like at least
Well, we
$50 million opening weekend.
Two things. Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones.
I don't know if that's the problem.
I think
Hemsworth is just as big a star as what Will Smith is right now. Not back when the first Men in Black, first couple ones came out, but I think right now Chris Hemsworth is a draw. And
I agree. I completely agree with you, but it's the when people think of Men in Black, they think of these two guys. They don't think of somebody else. Like, the only real tie that we have to the original three is Emma Thompson, and that's only because she was in the third one when she took over for Rip Torn. Other than that, there's not a whole lot. I think there's too much disconnect. And it doesn't help that maybe that it was too many years too late. I mean, the on-screen chemistry we already know Chris Hemsworth has with Tessa Thompson. There's no argument there whatsoever. Maybe some people were turned off by the little sidekick out of Kumail Nanjiani. Blah, 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 blah.
I thought he was a little over the top in the trailer.
But you know what? That's Kumail, though.
I like him. But, yeah, I think that character was a little bit over the top and almost cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you think if, let's say this first Men in Black International trailer came out and also there's a brief cameo of Will Smith at the end of that trailer.
More people would have gone.
Do you think more people would have gone?
I do think so.
I think they would have, but I think this franchise is kind of, it's just dead in, not, I don't want to say dead in the water, but it's not a bankable franchise anymore.
No, definitely not.
No. Yeah, it's, I don't know, I can't really tell exactly what it is. I'm not a, insider on this type of stuff. But
what?
No,
you're not an insider?
We should lie about that. Yes, we are insiders. We know everything there is about movies.
So let me look just for the shits and giggles. July 4th weekend, 97, when, Will Smith was the bankable guy. Actually, this Men in Black, the first one only grossed $51 million. So that means that actually Men in Black 3 actually grossed more opening weekend. Let's see here. Men in Black 2, just for the sake of shits and giggles. Weekend. 52. So
all of them right around that 50 to 55 range.
Right.
And this one at 28.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's disappointing news. Sony still doesn't have a franchise on their hands. After this numbers, I don't think there's a chance we're getting a sequel to this Men in Black.
No.
Yeah, Sony will keep searching for their franchise after this.
Well, they have one. The one that they give the creative control over
to someone else. Please make us money.
Hey, Feige, can you make us some more money, please?
Just print it off. All right, number 2 this week, The Secret Life of Pets to $23.8 million. Total domestic gross, $92 million. So this movie opening, it's in its second weekend out, was number 1 last week. Only took a 49% drop. I think families are still going to keep going around to this until, we're going to get Toy Story, which will
here's
take that out pretty fast.
This is the part that I'm finding very entertaining right now. Like you said, it's only a 49% drop, which is probably slightly below average, right? And yet still takes second place at only 23 and whatnot. That just goes to show nobody was going to the theater this week. Okay, rephrase. Obviously, there was a few people that went to the theater. But, not like the droves that will be coming up here in the next few days.
Yeah, I think it was a downer week for movies. Everyone was kind of waiting up to gear up for Toy Story.
Yep.
I think Child's Play will open. I think Child's Play is going to open up a little bit better than some of these movies did this week. I think Child's Play will be at number 2.
Do you think Child's Play will beat 28 million?
I don't think so. No. I don't think it will. I think it'll open at number 2 though. That's my prediction.
Why? What's it going up against? Oh yeah, Toy Story.
Toy Story, Brian. Come on. Number 3 this week, another Disney movie, Aladdin, $16.7 million.
Only a 32% drop from the week before.
Yeah, I think that one's, it's still pulling people away from going to these other movies, like Men in Black, like Dark Phoenix, which we'll talk about next. I think Aladdin it's that the Disney brand. Taking it away from everyone. Number 4 this week is, I think this is the second big news out of this weekend. Dark Phoenix, $9 million, takes a 72% drop in its second weekend out.
Yeah, nobody wants to go see this. I would almost bet to say that this will be out of the theaters within the most movies. They try to keep them in about 56 days. This will be out within a month.
You think so? I can see that.
They're not going to waste the screen space for something else that they can bring money in.
That no one's going to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think this is it's the final dagger in the X-Men franchise at Fox, and well, without going out with a bang, it goes out with a nice whimper.
I will say X-Men proper, and I'm still looking forward to them not pushing back New Mutants again. And
you're still pulling that movie's gonna
I'm still hoping.
I am tenfold more excited to go watch New Mutants than I ever would be for this Dark Phoenix movie.
Well, of course you are. It's a horror. It's got the horror element.
It's something different in a superhero movie, but I think it's going straight to that Disney service.
I guess
I don't think we're getting the theatrical version.
we'll see.
Rounding off our top 5, Rocket Man, $8.8 million. And then number 6, the other opening wide release movie this week, Shaft, $8 million.
Dun, dun, dun. That's probably one of the weaker openings for Sam Jackson, the most bankable man in Hollywood.
Do you stand by that statement that you just said?
It is. I don't remember who's done it.
He's in every single movie,
Well, no.
so that doesn't count.
So but that's what I'm getting at is that if over every single actor, I don't remember where I was reading exactly, but based on the movies he's in and the amount of money that those movies have brought in, it also helps that he's also Nick Fury. That helps. But he himself, in terms of his movies, have brought in it's like $5 or $6 billion worth of money.
It helps when you have a 2-minute scene in Avengers Endgame for that. It takes up half of your total gross. But all right, that's the box office for the week.
Box office.
I think we'll have a little bit better weekend next weekend.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Toy Story might break,
I think Toy Story might break that 28.5 million.
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah, add maybe 100 to that. All right, let's jump to the news for the week. It is a horror-heavy news week.
Yeah, you're
much to my chagrin, but this is
your shit grin. Is that
my shit grin? Yes, no, my chagrin.
What the fuck is a chagrin?
My whatever.
In my 40 years, I don't know what a fucking. You're just making shit up.
I'm not making words up. Please comment on this video if you know what chagrin means.
Chagrin?
Chagrin.
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 You're a chagrin.
Yes. Let's move on to the first news article for the week. 3 from Hell, the new Rob Zombie movie, finally gets its first little teaser trailer. So this is the sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects. Brian, did you get a chance to watch this little tease?
No, I didn't know there was a teaser.
Oh.
I feel bad about it now.
Here's one reason you didn't know about it. Because every marketing piece for this movie is just coming from Rob Zombie's personal social media accounts.
Well, son of a bitch. I guess I best be making some changes.
You better be following Rob Zombie on
some
Twitter
changes
and
to
Facebook.
I was saying make some changes to my notification settings.
Yeah. That's where all of this marketing is coming from. The first big thing is there's no set release date. Rob Zombie is still saying it's coming out this fall. I tend to believe it. It will probably go straight to video. But this gives us our first little look at the.
Even 31 got at least a limited release.
I think it might get a little limited release, but it's not going to hit Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Well, I know this much. If it does hit Sioux Falls, your butt's going to be there, first showing.
And yeah, I will, because I am Rob Zombie. I don't think he's a very good. I don't want to say he's not a very good filmmaker. That's a bad way to put it. Most of his movies I do not like, but Devil's Rejects I think is his swan song for movies. That's his sweet spot. That's where he needs to stay, and that's why I'm glad he's doing a sequel to that film. I'm curious to see where the family is in 3 from Hell, because spoiler alert for The Devil's Rejects, they all die at the end. So I'm curious to see what he's going to do with it. This trailer doesn't reveal too much. He just basically says that this movie's coming out, and get ready to look forward to it.
You may comment about the kind of movies that he makes, and the style, and in comparison to some other horror movies, that it's not quite up to par. Rob Zombie to me seems like if the 1950s just over the top crazy weird horror movies
bump up your decades too.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about
if his movies came out in the 70s, these would play like gangbusters. They'd be cult classics for sure.
But where I'm getting at though is those in the 50s and 60s when they were doing all the weird shit in the theaters, with the gimmicks and everything like that. I think that if those kind of movies existed today, they're Rob Zombie movies. So I think he literally lives and embodies the image that his character of Rob Zombie is, including in the movies that he makes. So that's where I look at these movies I look at a Rob Zombie movie kind of in the same tone as I do a Kevin Smith movie or a Tarantino movie. I'm not going to go into that movie, whether it be a Oscar-winning movie like a Tarantino movie or a Yoga Hosers for Kevin Smith. But I know I'm going to go into that movie with a certain expectation because of who made it, and for these kind of people, they're more passion projects than they are for money makers.
They're going to make the movies they want to make.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I give Rob Zombie that. He makes the movies he wants to make that he would see, and I 100% support that.
And puts his wife in all of them.
And I don't see anything wrong with that, honestly. The people like to give shit for that. I'm like, he's giving his wife a job, like, gets to hang out with her on set, like, well, shit, we'd all do the same thing. Come on.
Not only that, but I mean, even for, like, if you look at House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects as part of the infamous 3 that we're talking about, she's creepy as fuck.
Oh, yeah, she's really good in those.
So it's not like, I'm just going to put Sherry Moon in here and it's going to be just garbage.
Halloween.
Well, again, she's in everything.
Yeah.
So, like, when you knew that he was making a Halloween movie, you just wanted to know where Sherry Moon going to show up. But in respect of these particular movies, she does a damn good job of playing exactly who she's supposed to be.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm interested to see where this movie's actually going to end up. If it's going to end up in the theaters, maybe Shudder will pick it up. I'm not sure. But let's move on to our next trailer that we got this week. And it is a film that we know the set release date. And that movie is coming out November 8th, 2019. That movie is Dr. Sleep. So this is based on the book that is a sequel to Stephen King's The Shining. And this movie is actually a sequel to both... It's a sequel to The Shining book based on... It is based on, and it is also a sequel to The Shining from Stanley Kubrick.
It took you a little bit to get that out.
Yeah. It's confusing though.
How is it confusing?
Because when I first heard about this movie, it was just going to be based on the book that is a sequel to the book The Shining. But now when you see this trailer, this is a straight up sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
What, you didn't get that out of the fact that he looks right through the broken door,
or that there's the twins, or the carpet, or the tricycle, like everything. The blood. He pulls shots straight from The Shining, redoes shots, I guess, straight from The Shining and puts them in this trailer. And
I mean, yeah, and you can definitely look at this trailer and know exactly that it's, and I will be a champion for the remake of The Shining. I will always be a champion for that. But
you might be the only one.
Fuck you. But at the same time, too, you can definitely see the homage to the original while, updating and, doing its justified sequel. For, the few different times that, we keep getting new Stephen King stuff, this is definitely one I'm looking forward to.
No, it has the right creative force right behind it with Mike Flanagan. Mm-hmm. Which, to me, he is the best horror director out there right now. He has no bad movie. I would say
we looked it up there. It's true.
No, he doesn't. I would say some of his worst, I guess, would be great movies.
Well, I mean, if you use Rotten Tomatoes as your leverage, as your constitution of his quality of work, anything that is below 60 is when you don't get that fresh rating and whatnot.
The green splat.
The green splat. His lowest rating movie is a 61.
Do you remember what that was? Was it Hush?
No.
Hush.
No. Hold on.
I'll let you look it up. But
yes.
No, this trailer I absolutely loved because I was super surprised by it because as I said, I didn't know it was a sequel to Kubrick's The Shining. And now that I see this trailer, I'm glad that it is because, that's The Shining everybody knows.
Before I Wake.
I love Before I Wake. Come on.
Its highest rated is Hush.
Hush. All right. Yeah, I think Flanagan is a perfect director to take on this material, to take over for Kubrick and adapt a Stephen King story. And then Ewan McGregor, I think, is just going to kill in this movie.
What's Ewan McGregor? He just kills, period. Even if his movies are not great,
he's the best part.
He's not the reason why they're bad.
No.
I mean, come on. Wasn't he in Men at Stare Goats?
Yes.
Yes, with George Clooney.
He was also in Star Wars Attack of the Clones, and he's the best part of that.
Well, he was in all the prequels. That doesn't count.
But Attack of the Clones is the worst of those. We talked about it in our Star Wars episode. Check it out. No, I love all
shameless plug.
Yeah, I love all the homages to the Kubrick stuff. I hope we get one thing I did see from Flanagan is that he had a no jump scares rule for this movie.
No jump scares.
No jump scares, which I think if you look at the original Shining from Kubrick, there isn't really jump scares.
Because that's not what. Well, it's because that's not what Kubrick was about.
No, and I think that is what makes horror great. It's just unsettling imagery, not the jump scares and loud noises. So I think Flanagan is the perfect guy to take this on.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so that movie comes out November 8th. Brian, will you be there opening weekend?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I will definitely be there.
Of course you will.
Because I'm a horror nerd.
You're going to be like, it opens up on a Thursday, and then we take some time off from work.
I'm a cosplay as Jack Torrance, and...
You can't cosplay as Jack Torrance.
Why not?
Why?
Why?
Are you going to shave the beard?
No, he's just...
He'll
be Jack Torrance with a beard. Let's jump to another piece of horror news this week. Blumhouse is remaking Black Christmas. And you know what? They've already have a cast and director and will start shooting here in the next month.
Well, that's because that's just how they work.
That's
it's
how
like
Blumhouse works.
I think Spawn is probably like the only thing like right now where they've announced it and they haven't actually started production yet. It's like
that's because it's Spawn. It's always gonna take forever to get into production.
And if it's not that they haven't, they start production immediately, it's like, hey, we're doing this. It's gonna come out in like 2 months.
Yeah.
Like what they did with Happy Death Day. It just kind of showed up one day and like, oh, by the way, this is coming out on Valentine's Day.
This movie is set to start filming here in the next month. It's coming out December 13th, 2019. It's less than a 6-month turnaround.
Yeah, but it's also
it's a horror movie made on the cheap, slasher genre. It's super easy to do on that.
Yeah, I guess I mean, you figure most of the effects are probably going to be practical. And if there is any CGI work or anything like that, they'll probably be able to do that on the daily because it's not going to be labor intensive compared to like an Avatar or an Avengers.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't see this as a problem.
No, I think Blumhouse is primed to do this remake. I have to admit, I have yet to see the original Black Christmas.
What did you think of the remake of Black Christmas?
Oh, it's terrible. The remake is terrible. It's terrible. But
it was not good. You're not wrong there.
No, I'm excited to watch this, and this just means I need to watch the original Bob Clark Black Christmas immediately.
Immediately?
Immediately.
Why? Why can't we watch this Happy Christmas movie where there's horror elements that nobody noticed or doesn't really acknowledge?
Are you talking about A Christmas Story, Brian?
Hey, you have to admit that as much as I absolutely
Santa's a creepy.
Agreed. That's what I'm saying. As much as I absolutely love that movie, it's my top Christmas movie ever. And
we talked about that on TV, Brian. Remember that?
We did talk about it on TV, and that Santa is creepy as fuck.
He is creepy. I think his elves are just as creepy. They were just creepy people. Anyway, Sophia Takal is set to direct. She worked on one of the installments of Hulu's Into the Dark series. And Imogen Poots is set to... Did I say Sophia Takal? She's set to direct.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Get your
and then
shit
Imogen
correct.
Poots is set to star in the movie. She was previously seen in A Green Room and a movie we talked about last week, 28 Weeks Later.
Dun, dun, dun.
So she's an up and coming actress, and I think
for up and coming, she's actually been around for a little bit, and actually
she's pretty young.
I call me this would be the first movie where she's in a movie where it's the first movie where I actually started to look at Zac Efron outside of Disney, and that is the awkward moment with her and Michael B. Jordan, Miles Teller, Zac Efron. It's like your early 20s ish, but all of them do an absolute fantastic job, and that's the movie where I know her, right away from. So to see that she's been able to progress even more and more into her career, I think is very exciting for her.
No, so yeah, I'm excited for it. I think this movie is primed for a remake, and Blumhouse, I think they got a good base hit with Halloween last year, so I think they're gonna keep on that steady train with Black Christmas.
You think so?
And I think we'll get some nods to the original, if not set in the same universe.
You say that, and then we'll get Truth or Dare.
Woof. All right.
As much as we love Blumhouse.
I do. I wrote a paper. I wrote my final college paper on Blumhouse.
Really?
Yes.
But I was gonna say, as much as they just like every studio, not everything is gonna hit, and here's just hoping that this one does better than the other remake. And maybe that's why they wanted to pick up that IP. Maybe they're like, That other one was bad. We need to try to wash that out of people's brains.
Now, Blumhouse, please just pick up Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and keep going with those, please.
You know New Line is not going to give up that shit easy. And Warner Brothers is not going to give you... Good luck with that, my friend.
There's been rumors of them picking up Scream, though. So I'm interested to see if that actually comes to fruition.
Yeah, but you understand who has that, too. You know why that's an easier property to get, right?
Who has Scream?
Who has Scream? Dimension, which is a division of Miramax, which is the Weinstein Company.
Yeah, please pick it up, Blumhouse. Jason Blum, make it happen. All right, let's move away from the horror news to something more in Brian's wheelhouse.
My wheelhouse.
Your wheelhouse. Comic book movies.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw this one in
here
because I think it's super fun.
Well, and I'm sitting there going, I don't know where this came from. I haven't heard or seen anything. And you're just like, hey, I found this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I saw this. It came from the Hollywood Reporter. And this says back in 2010, Fox had...
So 9 years ago.
Yep, right before they released First Class. They were in production on that movie. There was this thought running around Fox of doing a Marvel Civil War style movie with the X-Men and Fantastic Four. So the story I get from it is
that Silver Surfer failed, and so they're like, we can't do this.
I don't know if they were going to actually use that Fantastic Four, the Chris Evans cast. But it doesn't say in this article. But basically, the story would have been Johnny Storm goes supernova and blows a hole in Manhattan and kills a bunch of people, sparking the superhero registration, which we got in Captain America Civil War. And one of the things it leads to is a big fight between the X-Men and Fantastic Four. So far into a fight that Mr. Fantastic stretches his arms to like a molecule wide and then slices off Wolverine's arms.
Yeah, that sounds a little...
Yeah, not like the Fantastic Four movie we got back then.
No. That seems a little darker.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. It ends with them making peace, and the after credit scene would set up a Skrull invasion for Secret Wars.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I kind of wish this would have happened. Paul Greengrass was tapped to direct. So could you imagine a Paul Greengrass X-Men versus Fantastic Four movie?
Maybe. I mean, it is Greengrass. I mean, if there's one thing that we know that it would have probably a very good amount of, it would be a lot of good action.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the two things missing in the Fantastic Four movies from the early 2000s and the X-Men movies.
Well, it's because
Great action.
They were science nerds. They don't fight. They're lovers.
Let them fight.
I'm still trying to, there's aspects about the Fantastic Four is why I think it's been fun to watch, but always been a little awkward. Is that the powers of the Fantastic Four just don't translate very well to modern cinema.
I disagree. Mr. Fantastic's is a little weird. He
Yeah.
needs to be the one that stays on the sidelines and just uses his brain. But when you had the Thing and Johnny Storm, I think that's where you got to have your action.
Okay, I guess I could picture
Imagine
that.
a Beast versus Thing fight. That's definitely something that went through their mind.
So I'm picturing Kelsey Grammer versus Michael Chiklis.
Yes. Iceman versus Human Torch.
No, see, I would have been okay with that because
Yeah.
I would like to see Chris Evans versus Shawn Ashmore.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. For like your secondary characters for the original X-Men, I've always been a big fan of Shawn Ashmore. I think he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah. So this movie it never happened. Obviously, X-Men First Class was a big hit. They decided to move forward with a straight up sequel to that rather than a spin-off like this, and yeah, the rest will be history because this is something we will not ever get. At least in this iteration that they wanted to do. Any final thoughts on this Fantastic Four versus X-Men movie?
Yeah.
What could have been?
I'm glad it didn't.
Really? Not even a little bit? If it took us getting First Class to not get this movie, I would take First Class. Just putting that out there. Let's move on to our last little piece of news that will tie into our main topic for the week. Toy Story 4 will not have a short film playing before the feature film.
This makes me sad.
For me too.
This is why I wanted to bring it up because or the original Toy Story and Pixar is what brought us back to the days of having these little short films.
The original Toy Story in the theater did not have the short film that played before it.
It didn't have Jerry's Game?
It came out on the home video releases when they put their short film.
But then subsequently after that.
That's the only way I've ever known Toy Story was with that short film before it.
Right. And that's been, like I said, that's been a thing for everything. I mean, they even spoof it a little bit in, like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit from the 80s, because that was a thing from back in the day. You know, you always had these little short cartoons before the feature film, you know, when nobody had TVs in their houses and whatnot. And, you know, it was just a good, fun thing. Hey, what are they going to show this time? And now they're just like, yeah, we already know we got your money. We don't need to give you anything more.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but it's a sad thing for me to see that they aren't going to be doing this, because I think in some cases the short films are better than the actual theatrical film.
Some of them.
Yeah.
But, and here's another thing too, is, you know, some of these characters that are introduced into these shorts end up making their way into the movies later on. Look at Jerry from Jerry's Game. He got himself into the Toy Story movies because he was the toy maker that came to fix Woody in Toy Story 2.
Nice call.
Yeah.
So let's jump into these Pixar movies. We're going to start right from the beginning, the one that started it all, and we're going to work our way all the way up to Toy Story 4 this coming weekend. Let's start it off with Toy Story 1995, the original Pixar film.
How old were you then?
When this movie came out, I was a year and a couple months old.
So you have literally, before we get in this here, you have literally grown up with these movies.
Literally. We'll talk about it.
As I'm sitting here going, I was a little older than that. You know, unfortunately, a lot of these here, I didn't see a lot of these in the theater when they first came out and whatnot because of my age, you're not a late teenager going, hey, you know what, I'm going to go see a kid's movie in the theater.
About toys.
You know, what's funny now is that it's a whole different thing now, though, too, because anybody be like 16, 17, be like, bitch, I'm going to go see Toy Story.
Well, I think one thing is they grew up on it.
Right.
Like, for me, I grew up on the Toy Story movies, and I had all the Toy Story figures.
Yes, did you have
I had
all the toys?
Woody, I had Buzz, I had Jessie. I wrote my own name on each of their feet. So I'm like, these aren't Andy's toys, these are mine.
These are not Andy's toys, these are Casey's toys.
Mine. And yeah, I grew up on all these films, and the Toy Story movies hold a special place in my heart just because of that. Because there's a connection to those characters and to the whole reasoning of them actually being alive and their story to me. But that first Toy Story movie, it did something unprecedented. It's a completely CGI film. It's something we really hadn't seen before.
Nope, it was still all cell animation back then. What would you say would be your biggest takeaway from the original Toy Story? Like, if there's the one thing about that movie that helped define Pixar or define these movies for you out of Toy Story, what is it?
Heart.
Heart?
Because you can look at the CGI and yes, you can look at the CGI and the animation, and it obviously improves tenfold over the next 25 years. Tenfold.
No,
25 years.
No, I'm just saying.
It improves tenfold.
I'm saying it's more.
Oh.
I'm going more than tenfold because yeah.
But yeah, for me, what makes the Pixar movies is the animation is part of it, but it's also each of these movies that I consider great have a heart to it. And the camaraderie between Buzz and Woody that they develop in this movie is the heart and soul of each of the Toy Story movies. And I don't know, looking at it now as an adult, the thing that kind of sticks in my mind, at least for the first Toy Story movie, is how messed up Sid is.
Sid is a very messed up kid.
He's a very messed up child. What he does to toys is just wrong.
And I love the fact that, and we'll continue on with this here, but I love the fact that he himself, as a secondary character, still has an arc through these movies.
Would you call it an arc, or he just ends up being a trash man?
Well, I mean, in the sense in that if one thing that Pixar is good at is Easter eggs, throwing nods even at to other movies within other movies. But to go into Toy Story 3 later on and whatnot, and to see him basically grown up, they didn't have to do that. But anybody, again, who's grown up with these movies goes,
Whatever happened to him?
I recognize the shirt. That's Sid.
Talk about Shining references. There's plenty of Shining references in Sid's room.
Right. But the one thing I would say for me for Toy Story is simply the cast. Never in a million years would you ever think that you would put a movie together where your two main characters are Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. At the time when Tim Allen was originally cast for this, he was at a very big high in terms of being cast in major motion pictures. He was a box office draw,
Big Disney guy during that time.
a big Disney guy at that time, So he was already in the Mouse House at the time and whatnot. But you look at that and you're looking again 25 years later, and you're like, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen are still doing it, Tom is still Tom, but Tim's like, oh, you want to make another Toy Story? I am Buzz Lightyear, bitch.
Yeah.
Arlie Ermy as the sergeant. If you're gonna get anybody to play a sergeant in
any movie,
you get Arlie Ermy. May he rest in peace. Just everybody. And this is the beginning of the John Ratzenberger Pixar evolution of just John's in everything.
All right, you ready to move on to our next Pixar movie?
Yes.
This one, as a child, I watched this movie over and over because it is A Bug's Life.
Because it is.
Now,
what? Okay. My biggest take from this right here. What movie would you ever have a ladybug being played by Dennis Leary?
And it's great.
And it's amazing.
It is. I haven't seen this movie forever. It makes me want to just go sit down and watch it again. And
oh my god, I forgot Dave Foley played Flick.
Yeah. No, this movie I remember it fondly because of the strange circus sideshow act that these bugs belong to, and how menacing, honestly, Kevin Spacey's grasshopper is. In a totally different light now, but
I was gonna say, does it seem a little? Do you look at it and go, ooh, context?
I haven't watched it in since all that stuff, so I don't know really. But this movie, it draws a lot of comparisons to another Ant film that came out right around the same time. Do you remember the name? Was it Ants?
I was gonna say, yeah,
the Woody
Ants.
Allen movie.
Yeah, Antz.
Yeah, I've never watched that one.
I didn't either because it's one of the. This actually
Before we go off topic.
No, I was gonna say that's what I get a kick out of. This is the time when it's like Pixar won the battle between the bug movies, between Bug's Life and Ants. Like, if you're gonna talk about a movie about that time, whatever, some people might remember Ants, but everybody's gonna remember this. Yeah. Everybody remembers A Bug's Life.
No, I finally remember watching this movie as a kid, and yeah, I don't know. My favorite character in this movie is the caterpillar, who turns into a beautiful butterfly. And it's a great art for him.
Yes. This would be my first Pixar movie on DVD.
Yeah. This is one of the first ones I had in VHS.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because I don't even think Toy Story had been even released on DVD yet when this came out.
Oh, in theaters?
Mm-hmm.
98? Maybe not.
No.
Yeah, A Bug's Life. I fondly remember this. I need to jump back to it sometime.
Do it.
And then let's jump to, in my opinion, my favorite of the Toy Story movies, Toy Story 2, 1999.
Boy, look at that. Just look at the small gap between 1 and 2, and then how long before 3, and then how long before 4.
Yeah. No, Toy Story 2, for me, in my opinion, is the best of the Toy Story films. It fully encapsulates... a lot of people talk about the second story being The Empire Strikes Back of the franchise. This movie is, but in a completely different light than what that term would bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I think this just focuses even more on the characters and focuses on their story, expands the universe and brings us my favorite of the Toy Story villains,
Stinky Pete.
Stinky Pete the Prospector.
I tell you what, my boys, before they found YouTube, they freaking would watch this over and over again because they love Stinky Pete.
Who doesn't love Stinky Pete?
Like,
I used to have a Stinky Pete action figure.
Like,
the coolest
I mean,
thing ever.
even as a villain, he's so like he's such a draw. And considering having Kelsey Grammer voicing Stinky Pete was just a great addition to this already great ensemble cast. I mean, between him and who's Jesse? Joan Cusack. You know, you already have a loaded cast, and you try to bring in a couple more heavy hitters. If there's one thing that Toy Story, or in this case, any Pixar movie, is bringing in additional voice characters, they don't take away from the already existing, but only just make it that much better.
No, they totally add to the cast that we already have.
Kelsey Grammer was a great Stinky Pete.
One of my favorite characters in this movie, though, we have to talk about it.
Slinky Dog?
Al from Al's Toy Barn.
Oh,
Played by Wayne Knight.
Wayne Knight.
Yes, I love Al.
I love the fact that they make Al from Al's Toy Barn kind of look like Wayne Knight without doing it at the same time.
Yep. If this was a live action movie, Wayne Knight could have played him.
Oh, fuck yeah, he still could.
Yeah. One of my favorite just little moments in this movie is, I think it's just a great sequence, is the elevator sequence. You get the fake Buzz with his utility belt on, climbing it, believing that he's flying. It's great. The fight with Zurg is awesome. It's a great arc for Rex, too.
No, the fight at the end, or when they get to the end, they start playing catch.
It's great. Oh, it's such a good little joke.
Yes.
It is perfect.
Luke, I am your father.
Oh, it's so good. I love Toy Story 2. Let's move on to the next film, Monsters, Inc. Now, this movie, it took me forever to finally get around to watching. Watched it on, I think, TV probably years later. But, Brian, what's your thoughts on Monsters, Inc.?
Monsters, Inc.? I think for the sake of your Billy Crystal and John Goodman, they couldn't have picked two better people. I mean, Billy Crystal definitely has that. When you picture and you hear Mike and whatnot, you definitely... He's got the voice for it. And John Goodman, especially, at least at the time, he's just a big, over-the-top, gentle giant. I mean, they just have such a... that dual chemistry of those two are the two unlikely things you would never think to be paired together. Similarly, that I think that they did with Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. Like, you put those two in and you're like, this is never going to work. Now, John Goodman and I think Billy Crystal think I have a better... chemistry in terms of like what you would expect that this would work.
Yeah.
This was also another a good push forward for Pixar, because this is when they're like, we're gonna do fur, and they Sully's a hairy beast and whatnot, and I think they did a good job. I like the idea of the monsters power everything with scares. So they have to go to work to scare the kids to power the city.
No, it's a great way to the audience that they're shooting for. It's a great way for kids to look at monsters.
A good way for them to look at monsters, while the adults also kind of look at it as the blue collar worker.
Workers, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen Monsters Inc. in forever. I need to go back and watch it again. And
just watch it for Boo. Boo is great.
She is great. That is a great, fun little character, and I just want to echo what you said. I think the chemistry is what makes this movie great.
Yes.
Like I said with Toy Story, it's heart. It's what makes it work, and I think that's very much a similar story for the Monsters Inc. movie.
It's heart.
It's heart. It's the camaraderie that these two characters have together.
But would you have to go to say, for the most part, most Pixar, its overall theme is heart? Like most of them, some of them will have their, maybe a little bit more geared towards certain things, i.e. Wall-E, for example. But I mean, for the most part, it's all about heart for Pixar.
Yeah, It's all about forming relationships and friendships, and I think that is a perfect theme to keep going on.
And make you want to cry.
And yeah, make you want to cry. The next film we have on the list, Finding Nemo, talk about another movie about friendship and forming bonds.
Yep.
And I think this one is one of the, I don't want to call it underrated because it's one of the only ones to get a sequel, but I think it's almost...
What do you mean one of the only ones? There's like 4 of them on here with sequels.
Yeah, and there's 20 movies. Where's our Bugs Life sequel? That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, trust me. I've been championing for that since '98.
Finding Nemo, I love this movie. I think it is one of the best in the Pixar catalog. It's one that can be enjoyed by all ages for sure. And we'll talk about Finding Dory when we get to it. I think it's one of the weaker films. But this film right here, I think, just hits everything it needs to hit on the head.
Well, and this is another example of going... Your 2 main characters is Ellen DeGeneres, which I think if I remember correctly, by this time, she was already doing her show. I think. And Al Brooks. Again, like 2 people, you're just like, this is not gonna work. But it's just, Ellen DeGeneres' Dory was just beautiful casting. She put so much soul into Dory. For the, completely dim-witted, I don't remember anything attitude. How would you compare? So far we've gotten three like duos. We've got Tim Allen, Tom Hanks. We've got Billy Crystal, John Goodman, Albert Brooks, and Ellen DeGeneres.
What are you asking?
What? How would you compare it in respect?
No, I think they all have Because
I'm not going to bring up Cars yet because I know how that's going to go.
We'll get to that. I think they all share very similar themes because it's all... I think the one that will kind of stand out is that... I don't know if you're trying to ask which one's the best, but I think the one that kind of is the most, I guess, familiar would be the Monsters, Inc. duo because they were already friends as the movie started. I think that's going to be the most familiar because when you get to Toy Story and Finding Nemo, those 2 characters...
They already have
They're on the opposite ends of the spectrum. They're not friends. They're... In the case of Toy Story, they're pretty much enemies when the film starts, and then you have that bond at the end. So I think the overall arc of Toy Story between the 2 characters is better than Monsters or Finding Nemo, but I think they're all 3 very different stories that tell the same theme perfectly.
Oh, definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, let's move on to The Incredibles, the Brad Bird Passion Project. The Brad Bird Passion Project and The Incredibles, the greatest Fantastic Four film that has ever been made.
Why? Because Mr. Fantastic was a girl?
It's very similar superpowers, and I think this movie plays what the Fantastic Four would be about. Family.
Well, definitely family and the social impact of superheroes. This is probably the first time which you can definitely, if anybody is, been keen on keeping an eye on like the type of movies that Brad Bird makes, this is probably the first time where we start kind of get into the social and economics of the actual day-to-day of the universe that they're creating within this here, yes, he could have just made a superhero movie and it would have been just like every other one, and it would have been like every other Pixar. I mean,
and he does later.
But what I mean is,
I know, yeah, it focuses on, it's not the fighting that makes this movie great.
No.
It's literally them sitting at a table talking.
But what I mean is, but also the after effect, the reason why there's the act to say they can't do their superpower thing because they cause too much damage, stuff like that. Like he actually shows a little bit of more of the real life aspect of it, right?
No,
words are hard for me today.
Yeah, I think, which is good while you're doing a podcast because words are hard.
Words are hard.
No, The Incredibles. It took me a while to finally watch The Incredibles, but as I said, it's the best Fantastic Four movie that we'll probably ever get. And I think The Incredibles, the thing that makes it stand out in the Pixar and then where we are in film today, is that if this movie came out this year, I think it would make even more money because we're in the superhero renaissance right now.
Right.
But I think it would maybe even play better if it was released today. Does that make sense?
Maybe. And I only say that maybe if the fact that, we have Incredibles 2 during the Renaissance.
Yeah.
The one that, the sequel that should have been out years ago. What do you think of Brad Bird's character in The Incredibles?
Who does he play in The Incredibles?
He plays, oh my god, what the hell is her name?
Is he play,
Yeah, he plays Edna.
Edna?
He plays Edna Mode.
I know people are gangbusters for her, and I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm sorry.
I do find the hilarity.
I get why she's funny and everything.
Well, I also get the hilarity in the fact that, if you're going to put yourself in the movie, he makes himself the superhero seamstress.
Yeah. It makes sense.
It's like when you look at The Simpsons, you realize that Bart Simpson is, voiced by a female. Yeah. You're like, really? What?
No, I think this is at this point in the Pixar filmography, they have straight hits, back to back to back to back to back.
Oh yeah,
I think out of these, the one that probably is maybe not hitting audiences quite as well as the other ones is A Bug's Life.
Agree.
But I still think Bug's Life is super
Fantastic.
underrated and fantastic. I think this is the next film is where Pixar I think takes a little bit of a turn.
I don't think
to keep a pun in there. It's Cars.
I still think the only reason why Bug's Life is so underrated and unappreciated is because I don't think people understood what to think about having a movie about bugs. I mean, just in short.
Yeah.
And as for your remark for Cars, screw you, man. I enjoy Cars. Cars is a great movie.
Cars is a good movie.
You just hate the fact that it's Larry the Cable Guy.
No, I think when you compare, like we have said, it's about relationships and friendships and them forming bonds. I do not for 1 second believe the friendship between Mater and Lightning McQueen.
Why?
I don't. I think they make Lightning McQueen too much of an unlikable character in the beginning for him to all of a sudden become likable. And Mater's an idiot.
Mater is the idiot savant that is what's gonna make you realize that you are that superficial prick that brings you down a notch or two.
Yeah, he brings everybody down a notch or two in this movie. No, I'm not a fan of Cars. I think
He just don't like you just don't like the cat. You don't like Cheech Marin. You don't like George Carlin.
No, here's the thing. I like all the side characters, and I don't like Lightning McQueen or Mater. I think all the side characters are all really good. Paul Newman's Doc Hudson is my favorite character in this movie. I wish the movie was about him. Like if they would do, instead of Cars 2 and 3, if they would have done a prequel with his character.
Well, by the time we got to Cars 3, that wasn't even possible.
Okay, instead of Cars 2, which we'll talk about, Brian. I definitely think that's the character they should have focused on, and I think it brings us to where the Pixar movies eventually will go with movies like Coco or Inside Out and those more adult-themed movies, and I think this is where that movie should have gone.
Here's my thing about Doc Hudson versus Lightning McQueen. Merchandise.
Oh yeah, that's why those sequels were made so fast. Money. More toys. We need more cars. We need to sell them fast.
Because I tell you what, well, I think it took a couple years between 2 and 3 though. Yeah, it took more years.
Yeah,
but no, I don't. Fuck my kids. Cars, I need my Lightning McQueen car.
Yeah, oh yeah. This movie came out. I believe this. What year did this come out?
2006.
So my brother was born that year. So for him, my Toy Story was his Cars.
Does he enjoy Cars?
Yeah, I don't know if he does now.
Well, you better ask him.
As a teenager, but as a kid, I had all the Toy Story toys. He had every single Cars character. So I think it's those movies that you grow up on that are gonna stick with you. As I said, the side characters are my favorite characters in Cars.
Which one would you for Cars? Which of the side characters is your guy?
Does Doc Hudson count as a side character, or is he more mainstream?
I'm gonna go with the town cars. So take you can't have Doc Hudson, you can't have Bonnie Hunt. So basically, you're top of the aspect of it of your like your top tier mains. So all your secondaries.
I think Fillmore is pretty great. The
Fillmore?
hippie van.
Who is Fillmore again?
George Carlin.
That's right. Yes.
I
Well,
think that's a. And then I love the all the NASCAR cars that all the drivers voice themselves. I think that's a fun little nod.
oh yes,
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I did enjoy Michael Keaton as Chick Hicks. But yes, to actually have who plays the king? Who plays the king? Famous
Richard Petty.
Yeah, thank you, Patty. The part that's funny about that is he's obviously not an actor. He's a race car driver or whatnot. But his vocals for that just worked beautifully. Like you couldn't have picked a better person to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all the side characters are what makes Cars strong, and honestly, it's what makes it more memorable than toys.
In toys.
Than the toys that they sell. Let's move on to the next film, Ratatouille.
All right. This one's all you, unfortunately.
Now, this movie I haven't seen in a while, but from what I remember, it's obviously about a theme that we've talked about. It's about friendship, and this time it's between a chef
And a mouse.
and a mouse.
Because, when I think of quality food where you don't get shut down, I think of a chef and a mouse.
Yes, that's what you think of. He's a rat, Brian.
Sorry, a rat.
That's why it's called Rat-Tatouille.
Rat-tatouille?
Not Mouse-Tatouille.
Mouse-tatouille? There's no such thing as a food called mouse-tatouille.
Yeah, Ratatouille, I think it's, when you look back at all the Pixar movies, it's one of the more underrated ones, the one that isn't really talked about anymore.
It's one of the ones that barely ever gets any re-releases, like A Bug's Life, to the point where I need it in my life and I can't get a decent copy for it.
Yeah, it's one of the, because I love movies about food, and this is one of the best movies about food, even though a rat is the star, which we need to do a food movies episode anyway. But I think this is definitely one of the best of the food movies out there, and it's another film directed by Brad Bird.
Because he knows character.
He knows his characters, and I think this is definitely one of the... If you look back at some of the duos that we have in Pixar movies, I think this is one of the most underrated duos out there.
Well, it's because everybody's like, it's a rat.
No, and it works.
I
think that is one of the best things that Pixar does. They can take something like a rat and make you love them and actually buy the relationship that the rat has with a human being.
No, you're not wrong. You are not wrong at all.
All right, let's move on to WALL-E.
WALL-E.
One of the most adult-themed movies in the Pixar
Definitely.
group.
If this is definitely that part where I'm saying
The game changer.
where they get into, when they definitely start branching more into realizing by now we are, over, a decade. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Almost, over a decade into the Pixar universe, into what, these people are growing up. We need to put more adult themes in it. I mean, it talks about, the economy and, the fact that, we're global warming and destroying the planet, and you're just like... Technology. There's so many happy and sad things about this movie that make it so great, and your main character doesn't even talk.
Yeah, that first half is pretty much a silent film.
Yeah.
No, I think that is what makes WALL-E stand out as far as where we are in the Pixar movies right now, because of how adult-themed this movie is. Of course, there was, the themes of friendship and camaraderie and family in the ones before, but WALL-E takes on social aspects that I think the other movies haven't really touched on yet.
No.
And, looking at the Pixar films that are going to follow after this, I think this is definitely one that stands out as one of the more adult Pixar movies, but also keeping enough comedy and lighthearted moments that kids are still going to enjoy.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, there's going to be a lot about where the kids are going to watch and just enjoy it for the robots and everything like that. But then you got the adults who are seeing the social impact of the global warming, the sitting on your butt, not exercising, all that stuff.
I kind of want that to be my future.
You want that to be your future?
A little bit. Make life a little easier. It's a joke.
Yeah, I don't believe you. You're like, that's my future right there.
Be that guy.
I'm gonna tell Kayla that's
That's what's gonna happen in the future.
yep, you're just gonna be the lazy bum sitting in your chair.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next film that's made us all cry?
Oh my god, dude.
Now
I will be the grown adult in the room that says that the movie Up has more emotion in the first 15 minutes than I think that any movie probably that year had. And I don't even know what movies came out off the top of my head that were 2009. But not a single word is uttered, and you're damn near bawling before the first word is even spoken in this movie.
yeah, it's that first 10-15 minutes of Up is just perfect. It is perfect cinema right there.
Yes.
In an animated film. I think this movie and then the next movie we're going to talk about, Toy Story 3, they're on where the emotional moments hit are on different ends of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Up it hits you right away. Toy Story hits you right at the end. And I think Up, it starts off strong, and I feel it keeps that momentum. It gets you right, unfortunately, in the mood of what you're going to feel for Up.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps you on the downer, and then it almost like The House, it lifts you back up.
I think that's probably the intent.
Yeah.
Is that we're going to get you into that slightly depressed mode at the very beginning, because then that's when we're going to bring in the little kid who's going to make you smile and make you a little bit happy. And then we get the old curmudgeon, but we kind of giggle at the curmudgeon. And then we get Kevin, and you can't help but not laugh at Kevin.
You can't.
You know, to the point where we get, and Christopher Plummer as the villain. Like, I love Christopher Plummer as a villain. He needs to play more villains, especially before he dies.
No, I love Up. I feel it is one of it continues that Wall-E theme, or more adult themes. I love the character of Carl Fredricksen. I think he is.
You had to look up his name, didn't you?
I knew his first name. I couldn't remember the last name. But now that I say it, I remember the kid saying Mr. Fredricksen all the time.
Mr. Fredricksen.
And yeah, that kid it's hard to not like that kid. He's charming.
Oh, he's adorable.
He is. And
He's like the little kid that, would come up to you, like trying to, sell a Girl Scout cookie or something like that.
you can't help just buy all the cookies from him.
Or want to give him a great big hug.
Yeah. No, I think Ed Asner plays Carl perfectly. He's one of my favorite Pixar characters. He's super relatable in the story that he goes through. And I think for a single character arc, I think he might have the best in the Pixar films, if not one of the best. Yeah.
And you look at Ed Asner, and, outside of maybe his glasses and whatnot, it's like they literally, like, kind of sort of build, Carl's character to kind of look like Ed Asner, which I kind of think is funny because of all the memes that have gone around. Be like, hey, my grandpa looks like the dude from Up.
Yeah. Everybody's grandpa.
Everybody looks like exactly.
Yeah. Toy Story 3. So the film that absolutely destroyed me in my first or second year of high school.
The supposed end of the trilogy.
Yep. And it is a perfect ending, but I also think it is a perfect way to continue to where we're going to get in Toy Story 4. Toy Story 3 just delivers that emotional gut punch at the end. On the personal side, I watched this movie. I was probably junior or sophomore in high school, and I went and watched it with my entire family. And I obviously, grew up on the Toy Story movies, so I'm like, all right, I've seen the first two, maybe I'll enjoy the third one. I was not ready for what was happening in this movie, because I was sitting there as roughly the same age as Andy was. I was, 2 years away from leaving the house to go to college. And as soon as I see those toys about to get incinerated, I'm like, oh, God, please don't. I don't want to cry in front of my parents.
You're like, immediately you're thinking about everything in your house. You're like, they're going to destroy all my shit when I move out. I'm not going to come back to anything.
And then at the end, when he drops off the toys to, what's the little girl's name again?
Oh,
Yeah, that he drops them off to. I'd have to look it up. But at that moment, I'm like, oh, don't cry. Don't you cry. I almost had to just, suck it up. Bonnie, that's the little girl's name.
Bonnie. Oh yeah, Trixie was the Triceratops.
Toy Story, it's one of those franchises where you got to build a new villain each time. And Lotso is one of the best villains in Pixar. He's such a good villain. I unfortunately think he's a very similar villain to Stinky Pete. And very similar stories.
And Ned Beatty just owned it.
But it works. It works. I will give him the pass on that because of how great this film is.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this is the first one where we unfortunately had to recast Slinky Dog. Because unfortunately the original voice of Slinky Dog, Jim Varney, had passed away. And I was not looking forward to this because, Jim Varney is Jim Varney. And at this point right now, you hadn't had to recast anybody. And, the good thing is that the person that they got to replace him, Blake Clark, does a fantastic job of not taking away from the character that Jim built.
Yeah. The only thing I can kind of say about this movie that maybe not necessarily don't like, but I feel hopefully they improve on in 4 is that our side characters from the first and second movie, like Slinky, Rex, Ham, Mr. Potato Head, kind of take a back seat to Buzz and Woody and the new toys.
Why?
I don't feel like they got as much screen time as they did, especially in the second one. I think the second one really focuses on those characters because they're obviously going on that mission with Buzz.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I kind of hope they just bring back. But one side character I absolutely love in this movie, Ken, voiced by Michael Keaton.
Oh no, the whole Ken and Barbie thing.
Oh, it's so good.
Even when you're just like, the Barbie is just over the top, goofy and whatnot, but no, when
how much more over the top Ken is than Barbie.
Yes, I also love the fact they have like the underground like gambling thing.
Yeah, it's great. I love Toy Story 3. Toy Story will, if we were gonna rank the franchise of Pixar movies, all 3 Toy Stories are at the top for me.
Oh yeah, Toys. It's always it's a good it's a good solid franchise for Pixar.
Yep. Brian's not gonna like my next comment though, because I think the bottom of the franchise is this next film, Cars 2.
I just like to give you shit about it because I will champion for this movie any day of the week. I definitely will. But I do understand everyone's criticism to the exact reason why I champion for it. And that's because they got away from the racing. There's racing in the movie, and that's what Cars is about, but they made it into a spy movie.
That's not why I don't like this movie.
You just don't like Larry the Cable Guy.
One, I don't think Mater should be the lead of the movie. But there is no friendship or relationship building in this movie.
Because it's already there.
It is, but when you look at Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3, there's still relationships building and expanding and becoming stronger. Mater and Lightning McQueen hardly have any time together on the screen.
Yeah, well.
Lightning's doing his racing and Mater's off on his weird spy missions. I think it's a big misstep for Pixar. But Michael Caine is good.
Thank you.
Michael Caine is really good in this movie.
Michael Caine is like the perfect Cars Bond car.
Yeah, I think that's not the stuff I hate. It's that they're like we have said throughout this entire podcast, Pixar movies are about heart. Mm-hmm. I don't feel there's a heart. These cars don't have a heart. They only have an engine. Maybe that's why I don't like them.
I've always been a big champion for it because it was something that was a little bit different. They didn't have to be because part of me was like it's NASCAR, so in the best way I could say it's like in Jeff Dunham, it's like, hey, look, they're making another left turn.
Making a left turn.
To the point where it's like, where do you go if you are going to make a sequel to Cars? Where do you go from there? So they thought outside of the box. They did something different. They did something that didn't necessarily, be like, well, here's Cars. We just rewrote the villain basically.
Yeah, I think we could talk about Cars 2 and what they could have changed and what they did right and wrong. And for all eternity. But I just feel it's just missing something that all the Pixar's movies have, and that's, like I said, it's heart. I don't feel connection to anyone. And yeah, that's my spiel.
That's your spiel. Your spiel's wrong.
Rotten Tomatoes tends to disagree with that one, Brian. Even though that Rotten Tomatoes not the end all be all, but it's the only rotten film in the Pixar franchise.
It's the only rotten one, huh?
Yep. Let's move on to a couple films that Brian's going to have to enlighten me on, because this is a blind spot in the Pixar filmography for me. That is Brave, Monsters University, and then Inside Out.
Jeez.
I know.
You gotta buck up there, kiddo.
Big gap right there, because I don't know if it's an excuse, but I was in the same place you were when the Toy Story Bugs Life came out. You were in high school and you didn't want to go watch these kids' movies, quote unquote. You know, you had more adult-themed movies you wanted to go to.
But, you know,
that's where I was at this time.
But at the same time, too, you grew up on it. That would be like the same as like people going to go see like Coco and Incredibles right now. These are people that have grown up on it. So like if you're a 20-something going to go see Incredibles 2, it's not weird because you've literally grown up with these movies. So your excuse is invalid.
At a high school age, you don't want to be the 16-year-old going to a quote-unquote kids movie.
At this point,
you're at a point where you want to be cool, Brian. I obviously wasn't even cool then, so I probably should have just went and watched these movies.
Yeah, you probably should have. But yes,
Brian, thoughts on these three films that I'm missing out?
Well, the first thing is I will definitely start off with Brave, because obviously that's the one that's next in line. The first thing that I would absolutely say that I thoroughly enjoyed about Brave is this kind of gave us our first female-centric main character. You know, we do have Dory in Finding Nemo, but that's more of the dual cast and whatnot. But it's more about this. This is almost kind of the Disney princess, where this is the first princess that didn't need to be saved. You know, the kind of thing. You know, big, huge, fiery red hair, thick Irish accent. You know, just generally, I think that, you know, it definitely hit the mark that it needed to. It was something a little bit different. I personally still think it has the heart, you know, that you're looking for. Emma Thompson, Bill Connolly, paying her parents and whatnot. Good, solid cast. You really should watch this movie.
No, I've seen bits and pieces on TV. It's one I just need to get around to. Monsters University is the next one on the list, Brian.
Yes.
I have not seen anything on it. It is a movie I think a lot of people forget about in the Pixar filmography.
Why do you think they forget about it?
I don't think I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. You know, you look back at Up and WALL-E and The Incredibles and Finding Nemo, those are over a decade old, and they're still talking about those movies. I don't hear anyone talking about Monsters U, and that only came out 6 years ago.
I don't know. Maybe it's because it's more of, you know, you referenced earlier about how in comparison to Nemo and to Toy Story and stuff like that, where these were two characters who came together and created that bond, whereas when we get Monsters Inc., it was they were already friends. I think this was Pixar's way of saying, hey, you know what? We agree with you. We need to show that story about how these guys came to be and how they came together and whatnot. And this is what we get. You know, you couldn't. I mean, maybe they could have met at work, but I like the idea that they met in college. You know, kind of bring it way back a little bit here. The college aspect of it I thought was fun because it definitely kind of, you know, gave Pixar the ability to be like, you know, we want to make a college movie, but how are we going to be able to make how are we going to make our Animal House? You know, if you look at all of the movies,
do it with monsters instead of
right. And I think they did a good solid job on it. They introduced a lot of new characters that were just weird and different and, you know, just lovable and whatnot. But I think this kind of goes back to what you said. This was Pixar's way of going, we need to show you how Mike and Sully met. Because, you know, he's the it basically plays out that he's the football player, Sully's the football player, and Mike is the nerd.
No, yeah, I think it's what made Toy Story the first one work is that type of friendship that builds, and from everything that you've said, it's that type of situation, two opposite ends of the spectrum coming together to form a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is all about, Brian.
That's what it's all about.
Friendship.
Friendship.
All right, the next film that I'm really struggling because I have yet to see and I've heard nothing but great things.
You fail.
Inside Out.
The Talk about a voice cast that is just killer. My favorite is Lewis Black as Anger. Like, if you need to have somebody, I think the only person who could have potentially been like more angry than Lewis Black in this would have been like Arlie Ermy. But he would have had too much of that drill sergeant sound.
Yeah.
Whereas Lewis Black is just pissed off. Amy Poehler, Bill Hader, freaking Minnie Kelling is in it. I mean, you watch this movie and you're like, you start to think, oh, that now I understand how I think. It gives you that fun, whimsical thing that every kid's going to enjoy, but at the same time, too, as an adult, you're like, this shit makes so much more sense to me as an adult. Like, the things that you forget about, the things that made you happy as a kid, the things of why things are, as you grow older and how your emotions change and evolve.
Yeah, it's for me. I remember watching these trailers, and that's the unfortunate thing for me, at least during that time, is of course you see like the big names, Amy Poehler and Bill Hader, attached to this movie, but then for me, I think of movies like Trolls or Minions, these lesser animated films, because Pixar is not that. And
Did you just call Minions a lesser?
that is a lot lesser film, Brian. And I like the Despicable Me movies. The Minion movie is bad. But I think that's what makes the Pixar movies different than any other animated film. That these movies are, honestly, they're probably just as much as for adults as they are for kids.
What?
And from what I've heard, Inside Out may even play better for adults than it would kids.
Oh, I would definitely agree. I mean, because it almost would be to say where you would understand your kids more. Like, these are the emotions of the kid from within the movie and whatnot. But as the adult looking at the thought process of what the kid is going through, you sit there as the adult, as the parent, going, "Oh, I get it now."
Yeah. Let's move on to the next film that Pixar released, The Good Dinosaur. Now, for me, this movie especially,
I'm about 45 minutes in. And I was half snoozing today because I've been up a long time today.
It was probably part of the movie, too.
It's part of the movie.
I think so. This movie is The Good Dinosaur. I think
It seems slow.
it is very slow. It's pretty boring. Not a lot happens. I feel like it does have one thing that all the Pixar movies have. It has that camaraderie, the friendship. But I think besides that, this is a really boring and dull movie. There's not a lot of vibrant, action or characters or emotion to this movie.
Like dinosaurs farming.
Yeah, it's pretty boring.
I did find the humor in the very beginning of it, where basically the meteor that hits Earth that destroys all the dinosaurs was just a shooting star in the sky, and the dinosaurs are like, "What?"
And then dead.
No. That's where this is. The Good Dinosaur, at least from what I gather from the very beginning of the movie, is an alternate universe.
I honestly don't remember because this movie is pretty forgettable.
Because, I mean, if you really think about it, the way, the whole evolution crap or whatever, is that the dinosaurs and man were never at the same time. Yeah. That basically the meteorite that was supposed to hit Earth just whizzed right by. Yep. And then, the dinosaurs evolved to the point where they can know how to farm and talk.
This movie, I don't know. It's another one of those Pixar movies that's kind of just come and gone. It is one of the lowest grossing Pixar movies. I want to say it's actually the lowest grossing next to the adjusted gross. It is the lowest, $123 million. domestically. The next closest after that is Cars 3 at 152. So it's one of the lowest. It is the lowest grossing Pixar movie. I think it has the second or third lowest opening, behind Toy Story and Bug's Life. So it's,
and that's mainly just because those were in the late '90s, and
time frame
inflation
in which they came out. Yeah. So I think if you're gonna go do an entire rewatch of the Pixar movies, and you gotta pick and choose which ones you're gonna keep and which ones you get rid of, I think Good Dinosaur is one you get rid of. The next film in their filmography is Finding Dory. So this is a sequel to Finding Nemo. It is the third franchise to finally get a sequel in the Pixar filmography. And Brian, have you seen Finding Dory?
I have it.
You have it, but you haven't seen it.
No.
Yeah. This is one. This is the second Pixar movie I watched in the theater, Toy Story 3 being the first. Finding Dory is pretty much the exact same film as Finding Nemo.
But with Dory's parents.
Except you unfortunately have to have Dory as the main character.
You say unfortunate.
Yes, because
Why?
I think what makes Finding Nemo work is Dory in small spurts. But when you have an entire movie of her forgetting everything and being ditzy, it's missing something there. That can't
Memory?
be... Yeah, well, that can't be your entire story. I think she works much better as a side character. I feel it has very similar... I have very similar qualms to this movie as I do Cars 2. Because Mater somewhat works as a side character to Lightning McQueen, but when he's pushed into the forefront, you get Cars 2. I know you love it. But Finding Dory, it's similar vein. Secondary character becomes the lead. There's not much there you can focus on. It has some fun moments. I definitely don't think it is the worst of the franchise at all, but it is one of the lesser Pixar movies.
I'm just kidding. I've got nothing.
No. Let's move on to the next film. We're getting down to our final three we got to talk about here. Cars 3.
Cars 3.
Now, this is one I've missed because
you failed.
Because I love Cars 2, that's why. No. This is sarcasm. I have heard Cars 3 is actually maybe the best out of the three films. Brian, you have watched part of this?
Well, according to the Tometer, Cars 3 is in between Cars and Cars 2. I've seen most of it. I feel guilty for saying that because I do enjoy the Cars movies, and I would say I've seen all of it, just not in sequential order, thanks to 4-year-olds. Where the hell did that go? There we go. The introduction of Cruz Ramirez, I think, was a very good... you make reference in regards to the relationship building and how much you kind of dislike Mater. This is more of a focus on the relationship between Lightning McQueen and Cruz Ramirez, who is supposed to be his trainer to get him into the this new race, because he's the has-been, and Jackson Storm is the new cool faster car and whatnot, and he needs to train to be able to beat Jackson Storm, which to bring in Armie Hammer as Jackson Storm, very good pick for the arrogant voice that he can portray as Jackson Storm.
Yeah, just kind of looking at this and where this movie goes, I think I'd enjoy this one. I like the storyline that I know about it.
This is the one where I do hear a lot of people say this is what Cars 2 should have been.
No, I can see that. I can see that by this plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that this is where the movies should have gone. And yeah, I don't know. I will eventually hop back on to Cars 3 and check it out at some point. How would you, from what you've seen of it, you would say on par, better than Cars 2?
I do agree. I do.
Even though you are the Cars 2 fan.
I am a Cars 2 fan. I'm going the underdog guy. I'm the guy that gets part of that 38. But no, I think it definitely reinforces that heart that you were missing from Cars 2.
The next film we got on the Pixar franchise.
Good transition there, by the way.
Yeah.
Your transitions suck.
I know. I don't know how to transition. Let's vroom on next to the next film. That movie is...
Let's turn the key on the next one.
Yeah, the next film, Coco. This is a favorite of mine. I absolutely love this film. I think it is one of Pixar's best.
Oh, it was so good.
And I honestly feel this is, out of all the Pixar films, maybe next to Wall-E, I think this is the most adult one. I feel this movie plays...
I never thought I'd ever heard the word murderer in a Pixar movie.
Yeah, this movie is crazy.
Like, it literally talks about poisoning a man and killing him.
Yeah. I feel this movie is for adults, and that adults are going to find much more to relate to and enjoyment out of this movie than kids will. This is... I feel this is the most adult Pixar movie.
Oh, definitely. It definitely is. And if there's... this one is obviously the one that's most fresh in my brain because I actually just watched this like 3-4 hours ago for the very first time. And I tell myself, man, I should have watched this a lot sooner. But if there's one thing that I can certainly say about Coco, it's fuck is it beautiful. Mm-hmm. Like everything about it, I mean, just the color. Like there is not a Pixar movie that I think can even get to 80% of just how colorful this movie is. Like, I picture the idea of someone in the pitch room says, "Hey, we want to make a Pixar movie about the Day of the Dead." Like, who would do that? We want to make an animated movie about the Day of the Dead. We want to make it about skeletons and like just the detail in the skulls and all of
the world that it builds.
Yes.
The afterlife world. I love this movie.
Oh, especially like when it does that whole pan up and you see it on the other side of the bridge and it just looks like it almost, it kind of reminds me of like, like when you first see Atlantis in Aquaman and it's just this glowing city of everything.
I was going to compare it to the first time when Dorothy opens the door in Wizard of Oz to the entirely new world. That's what I was going to compare it to.
I'm in terms of the color.
The colors, yeah.
The color.
The bright use,
Yes.
the bright like orange and blues and yeah, I get what you're saying.
What'd you think of the dog?
The dog is great.
The dog is hilarious.
I love every single aspect about this movie.
Did you look?
Go ahead.
I was going to say spoiler, but this thing's like 2 years old, so screw you.
If you haven't seen Coco, please go watch Coco right now.
I'm sad that I didn't watch it sooner. The twist when you realize who the dad is. Like, did you see that coming? I mean, I think they did a good job of you're not wanting to really like this guy at first, and then they flip it on you just like, now I hate the other guy.
Yeah, they do a very good job of that twist. I think if you're paying attention, you can probably...
Yeah, I'm thinking like in a rewatch, there would be things you probably would be able to pick up.
But I think this twist works, and the route it goes after you know where that twist is, there's just such an emotional gut punch here in this movie. Mm-hmm. When you figure out that twist and who he's actually related to and who his grandfather is. And I think for me, this might have the best original Pixar song, too. Remember Me? Mm-hmm. It is one that every time you hear it, it's just going to resonate with you and stick with you. And that's overall what this movie did for me. It just stuck with me.
This is one of those ones, too, where it's like, success or not, this would definitely be one of those movies where I would say do not even consider touching it. Do not try to sequel it. Don't try to overdo it. Just let it be standalone.
No, I agree with that. Let the creative team behind it make whatever they want after this. But let's leave Coco where it is.
Yeah, because
don't try to make it the cash cow that you're trying to make like the Cars franchise.
Right. Well, I mean,
Coco, it's a perfectly great standalone story.
Well, and that's what I mean, because I mean, like you look at like movies like The Incredibles. It's a superhero movie. Essentially, it's a superhero movie. So there's no reason why you couldn't and shouldn't. And like Incredibles 2 was it should have came a decade ago.
Yeah.
Toy Story. There's additional stories that can be told as one grows up with toys and whatnot. But you look at Coco, and you're just like, it had its beginning, its middle, its end. Just leave it be.
There's not much else you could actually explore, I think, in that world. I think this movie does everything it needs to in that hour and a half time frame.
Yeah, but until you get into, maybe there's another family or something like that, and so they try to bring something back.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably something they've attempted to try to pitch because if you have a successful movie, I mean, it's got a 97 on freaking Rotten Tomatoes. Somebody somewhere in the Pixar studios like, how?
Yeah. There is someone out there, but here is the.
How do we make an Up to? Again, another one that should be left alone is Up.
I think they're starting to figure out where they got to leave things alone and which ones they can sequelize. And one of those movies they did sequelize was The Incredibles.
Finally.
It only took them 14 years to make a sequel to The Incredibles, one of the most popular and fan favorite films of the Pixar filmography. And Incredibles 2, I just watched this for the first time the other night.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Netflix right now if you have Netflix. And overall, I enjoyed it. I think it's fine for what it is, but I felt there was something lacking in it a little bit.
And you know what I think that is, though? Is I think it's too much time. That I think if this movie would have come out sooner, the story probably would have been different in the first place and whatnot. But, I think that it was just too many years too late. Like, Brad Bird should have been able to make this movie before he even made Ratatouille. It shouldn't have been 14 years.
No, it should have been on the same route that they went with Toy Story.
It should have been 2 or 3 years later. It should have been as soon as they opened this up, they should have greenlit it, started making the sequel.
Yep. And Incredibles 2, I think it's a fine movie.
Craig T. Nelson is amazing.
As always. I think
Coach.
there's certain things with the villain that you can see coming a mile away. If you've ever seen a movie, you know who the villain will be.
Yeah.
Incredibles 2, for me, I felt that, what worked in this one was, I think the comedy works in this one better than some of the family aspects. I feel that kind of takes a back burner to telling a superhero story in this one.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the superhero story is the one they're trying to tell, and, the villain taking over the world, that type of thing, over the family, and I think that's unfortunately the route that they took, and that's what made the first the first Incredibles movie great, is that family aspect, as we talked about.
I love the evolution of Jack Jack.
Jack Jack is the best part of Incredibles 2. What I wish.
So would you say Bob Odenkirk and sister versus Jason Lee as the villain?
Jason Lee. Yeah, the villains in Incredibles 2, I feel are very weak. As I said, you can tell who they are coming a mile away.
I love Syndrome.
And yeah, I don't know. This isn't a movie I'm going to go back and watch like I would Incredibles. But I think if you want it on in the background, or it definitely leans more towards kids.
What would you have? Okay, so the way they end Incredibles and open Incredibles 2 is with the miner, played by John Ratzenberger. Would you rather have seen a movie where it revolves around him as the main villain? Because
no. I think.
Or do you prefer the fact that John Ratzenberger has always played the sub character, as the supporting character?
Yeah, I think he is a perfect the underminer, as he's called.
Yes.
He is a perfect little villain for them to fight right away at the beginning. The way I think they should have ended it, though, is that on a high note, like they beat him really fast and they're heroic and people love him for it. And I think that's probably where you should have gone with this, instead of bringing it almost back to where they were in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought on it. But I think Jack Jack is the best part. And his fight with the raccoon is the standout in this film.
I still think, and this is me, as much as I love John Ratzenberger, they need to give him like a main role. Like, I mean, yes, he is Ham, but I mean, nobody has literally been in every single Pixar movie but him. Give him as the shining star that he deserves.
I think maybe we could get that. Maybe get in a more adult themed one and give him the lead.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
I would be in for that.
He was even in Coco, and he's not even Spanish. Because you know what? At this point right now, you can't
You can't stop the
you cannot
20 movie streak.
you cannot stop the Ratzenberger train.
Yeah.
No.
Here it comes. Choo choo.
Choo, Cliff Clavin.
All right, so Brian, we have talked about all the Pixar movies for about the last hour. Out of all of them, if you had to just pick maybe just a handful as your favorites, what would you say?
Honestly, and again, I wish I would have said that I would have seen this a lot sooner, but Coco is definitely up there. Like that is definitely just an absolutely beautifully done movie. Great story, great visual effects, even good villain. Like you expect the villain just to be hollow, and it's got depth.
Yeah, he is evil.
Freaking evil.
Yeah, he's a great villain, and yeah, for me, I'm gonna echo that. Coco might be my favorite, but then you have to weigh one movie against three with Toy Story, so
yeah,
I would say for me, the ones that stick out in my mind are the Toy Story trilogy, Coco, and Up.
Agreed.
As the top.
I would
tier.
I would have to say that, especially for franchise wise, it definitely would have to be Toy Story. For as much as I like all the franchises and whatnot, Toy Story is just the one that's been just solid, running on all 8 cylinders the entire time.
Greatest trilogy of all time.
I can't take away from Inside Out. It's a good solid movie as well. I think that Inside Out would probably be on your list if you had seen it.
Yeah, I think so too. For me, the most underrated, I would throw Bugs Life and Ratatouille. My 2 most underrated ones.
The ones that nobody ever talks about.
Unfortunately.
Bastards.
Yeah, so this week we got the release of Toy Story 4, the 21st film in the Pixar filmography. And then after that, they got the film Onward that we talked about a few weeks ago. That stars Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. I think we're going to get that emotional gut punch with this one as well. And I'm excited to see where Pixar goes after this. Those are now have become movies where every time they come out in the theater, I'm going to try to get there.
Well, the other thing I do want to bring up here, just for the sake of argument, is that Inside Out actually was the resulting project. You know, you were talking about like don't do Coco 2, take that wonderful team and go make something else great again. Inside Out is the result of what happened when they canceled Newt. And because Pixar cancels Newt because the storyline was way too similar to that of Rio, and Rio beat them to the screen before they got done with it, so they canceled it.
Oh, boo!
But yeah, I know. But at the same time, too, they go on to work to say that because of that they moved on, and that's what was Inside Out became a result of that. So I mean, sometimes not everything that Pixar does comes to fruition.
They had a lot of Newt done too.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen some stuff from that.
Well,
yeah.
they were already releasing trailers before they canceled it.
Yeah.
What was the other one that I saw here? Yeah, they were going to do a live action adaptation of a novel called 1906 with Brad Bird to direct again. No, so at least that was the big one that I did find out, was the fact that the cancellation of Newt is what gave us Inside Out. So
yeah, I still feel, I mean, we're enough years away from Rango that we can now get Newt. So Pixar just
Rango isn't the reason why.
What was it?
Rio with Jesse Eisenberg, with the
is that the bird one?
Yes.
Oh, even worse. Like, no one remembers that movie. Come on, Pixar, release Newt.
Enough that they made 2 of them.
Yeah, no one remembers that.
Even
less so.
Angry Birds remembers because they even had an expansion.
Oh wow. So that is the Pixar movies. That's our talk on all the Pixar movies. Toy Story 4 comes out this weekend. Sure to be a big box office hit. And I'm sure plenty of us here at the Backlot 605 team will check out that movie this weekend.
What, Toy Story 4?
Toy Story 4.
Sunday.
And with that being said, we got to talk about some of the stuff we got going on here at Backlot 605. We will have a review for Toy Story 4 out once that movie is released in theaters. You can also check out a couple of reviews that we got coming out. One of our contributing writers, Andy Erickson, he's working on Men in Black International, so we'll see what his thoughts are on the film. Is it going to match up to what the box office brought us this week? Check it out to find out. Jameson Feifel's review of Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning will be coming out. So he's kind of been doing a rewatch of the Texas Chainsaw franchise.
He's been on a little bit of TCM kick lately.
Yeah, he's been on the kick, especially with that remake area. So a few weeks ago, he gave us the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, the one with Jessica Biel review. So he's working on the beginning right now. So check that out right now on backlot605.com. Check out contributing writer and collaborator Blake Ginnathan's review of Bushwick, the Dave Bautista Brittany Snow movie. You know, it flew under the radar, so I'm glad we get to have stuff like that on the website. So definitely check out Blake's review of that now on backlot605.com. Also check out our talk with the group at Snake Alley Festival of Film. That is happening this weekend in Burlington, Iowa. So if you're in the Burlington, Iowa area or want to make a little trip across state, definitely go check that short film festival out. They also have a special guest from The Room there, so definitely check that out. Greg Sestero will be doing a live reading of The Room script, so check that out. Also check out Coming Soon every Thursday here on Backlot 605. Check out our buddy Andy at Fat Dude Digs Flicks. I've been catching up on some of Andy's podcasts. He gives us a nice little shout out every time, so we like to return the favor. But Andy, I'm enjoying the podcast, and I know he listens every week. So guys, if you're listening to ours and not listening to his, please go check out the Fat Dude Digs Flicks podcast right now. While you're doing that, check out our TeePublic store. Link is available on backlot605.com. You can check out this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, and YouTube. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Did I miss anything, Brian?
Nope.
Think I nailed it this time.
Sometimes.
We got to talk about what we got coming soon on the podcast. Next week, we're going to be doing our next episode of something that I think went over really well the last time we did it. We called it Sophie's Choice. But you know what this time we're going to call it, Brian?
The Schmuck Club.
The Schmuck's Choice.
The Schmuck's Choice?
Part 2. So that will be coming out. We're going to pit it, 2 movies against each other. One will stay alive forever, and one will be erased from history. The week after that, we will have
we'll bring him back.
We have a special guest after that. We're going to bring Andy from Fat Dude Digs Flicks here to the Backlot 605 podcast. That episode is coming here at the last week of June, and we're going to talk about cult movies.
Now, why would we... Now, you must explicitly explain cult movies to this respect.
Yes. Cult movies that we will be talking about is in honor of Midsummer. So we're not talking cult movies like... The Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski.
Roof. We're not talking cult movies like The Big Lebowski or Rocky Horror Picture Show. We're talking cults like the Manson family. And yeah, that's the films that we will be focusing on with the Fat Dude. So definitely check that out in a couple weeks. So yeah, that's what we got going on here at Backlot 605. Brian, this has been a long episode. We got to talk about a lot of Pixar movies. We got some rewatching to do, don't we?
Yeah, a couple of them.
Yeah, so I will... Inside Out is the first one on my list I'm going to go definitely check out. So I hope you all enjoyed the podcast. Until next time, Brian.
I'm out.
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out. You're out. We're out.
We're out. We're out of here.
Peace out.
We'll see you next time in the Backlot of South Dakota.